Merry me, Gypsy Willow here. I'm going to do a video today on writing your own spells. And I have my handy dandy outline because we all know I tend to babble even when I have this, never mind when I don't. So, okay, let me just take these off because last time the glare distracted me so much so that I just was not even talking about what I was supposed to be talking about. So, writing your own spells. It's very easy to go on Google to get, different books and take spells from there. And that's okay if that's what you want to do. Take spells from, different sources. However, as well as, that's perfectly fine if that's what you choose to do. But when you write your own spells, they're very personal to you. You can write them how you want them. You can, excuse me, my phone. You can make it very personal and meaningful to you. And if you feel connected to your spell, the percentage of, excuse me, my brain just froze. The percentage of success is going to go up because you feel so connected with this. It's from you. It's within you. You created this. And you feel completely comfortable performing a spell if it comes from within you. So the first step of writing your own spell is to know the basics. What are the basics? Know what magic is. You really have to know the fundamentals of magic in order to create magic. There are rules to magic. And there really aren't many rules, but let me rephrase. There are some people out there that feel there are no rules and they can do whatever they please, and that's all well and good. To each their own is what I always say. For me, I will say this is for me personally, and whatever you choose, that's, whatever you choose, and that's okay. But for me, there are rules. Number 1, love spells can be tricky. A general love spell, if you're just calling for love to come into your life, that's okay. However, if you're calling for a specific person to come into your life, that's different. And that can be very tricky because what you would do essentially is bind that person to you. And what happens if the relationship doesn't work? Guess what? Now you have this person who's bound to you, and they're not going to want to go away because they're bound to you, and they're not going to be sure why they can't leave. So that's one. Number 2 is you never ever mess with free will. Excuse me. Like I said, my own personal choice, and it all depends on the person, individual type thing, but I personally don't recommend playing around with free will. You want to be able to do and do these magical workings and not have to mess with someone else's free will and their ability to do what they want. This is also pertaining to the love spells as well. Would you really want to be with someone who didn't want to be with you? And now that you've bound that person to you, would you really feel comfortable knowing that that person didn't want to be with you, and now you've made them feel as though they wanted to? So, you have to think about things like that, and that can weigh heavily upon you, maybe not at the time because it's something that you wanted, and then you may think about it later on and say, well, that wasn't such a good idea. So, what does magic mean to you? So not only what is magic, but what does it mean to you? And for every single person, it will be a different answer. There is no such, there's no wrong answer for this question. What does it mean to you? And you have to answer that question to yourself. It's a personal question. And next is know the different ways to raise your energy. There are many different ways to raise energy in a circle. You can do this by drumming. You can do this by chanting. You can do this by singing. You can do this by playing an instrument. You can do this through meditation. There are many different ways to raise energy. Know how to do that. Even if I strongly suggest that you work before you cast your own spell. Play around with different things and see what works for you first, because you really want to be comfortable with what you're doing before you do it. Know how to direct that energy that you have now raised, whether it be, if you're using a candle, if you're doing candle magic, whether it be into a stone or crystal, whether it be in herbs, whether it be a sachet, talisman, anything like this. You need to learn how to take that energy that you have now raised and direct it into what you want. So you can exercise and practice that as well before you cast your spell. That way you know how to do that and you feel comfortable with that process. Next is know how to cast a circle. Casting a circle is all about getting this protective bubble, basically. Like you're in a protective bubble, and when you cast your circle, you're calling in, the quarters. You're calling in, whether you work with just goddess or God and goddess or just God. That is completely a personal choice. If you work with both, you call them both in. If you work with just one or the other, then you call, whichever one you're working with in. Different gods and goddesses are good for different things. And that might be good, to look to see which ones are good for different things. And just know what they represent. Like, for instance, Hades is the god of the underworld. It might be good to do, if you're going to work or cast a spell for something like that, it would be good to use him. Next is how to open the circle when you are done. And that is basically just opening the circle of protection that you have cast and, being able to move freely about your home again or with your outside. You don't have to worry about, it's when you open the circle, they say when the circle is open yet unbroken, because it's always there, but now you've opened it so you can move freely. Next is know the basic outline of the spell, which is what I'm going to go over with you today. So that's knowing the basics. Next is knowing the intent or purpose of your spell. You really, really need to, realize what it is that you're trying to do. If you want to increase your chances at a promotion, know exactly what it is that you want. Do you want the promotion because it comes with that corner office, or because, it has a, 40% pay increase? Like, why exactly do you want that promotion? And there are different reasons why we want different things. So know what it is that you're trying to do. Are you trying to heal yourself or someone else? I will say that if you're trying to heal someone else, always make sure that you have that person's permission before doing so. It's just, one of those things that, like I said, it's one of my personal beliefs. If I'm going to help someone else through a spell, I'm going to get their permission first. What if you bring that to them and say, listen, I did cast a spell for you. I want you to get better. And now they are just like, no, I can't believe you did that. Like, I don't believe in what you believe in. You never know what the outcome might be. It's always good to get their permission first. Are you trying to bring love into your life? Again, I will say my own personal choice. Bringing love in general is, a great thing. Bringing a specific person to love and to have love you is a different story. And to each their own, not everybody will agree, and that's okay. But I just figure since, me personally, I share this information with you, I definitely wouldn't mess with free will and bringing a specific person into your life when calling for love. And, you can also cast spells and incorporate it into your Sabbath rituals, and also Esprit rituals as well. So you can coordinate, let's say, for instance, Samhain. If you're doing a Samhain ritual, it is the day of the year or the night of the year that the veils between the worlds are at its thinnest and you can communicate with the dead. If you want to do a spell to contact a deceased loved one, this night would be a fantastic night to do such a spell. Or if you want to, do something like that, whether it be like a dream spell, you want to dream of a deceased loved one or whatever, you can do that you can incorporate that into your Samhain Sabbath ritual. Before you start any magical working, know what it is you want. Make absolutely sure that you are 100% positive that it is something that you want. Because if you are not entirely sure, number one, it may not work. You can cast a spell, but if you're not completely confident that this is something that you want, the spell may not work. And number two, if it does work, and you decide that it's not something that you do want, what are you going to do? So make sure it is something that you definitely want to bring into your life before you cast the spell. Number three, know the best time to work the spell. Moon phases and days of the week play a big role in spell casting and magical workings in general. There are some spells that are better done on a full moon and on a Thursday. Like just for instance, and I believe it's my next video. Let me just see. I have my list of videos that I'm going to be doing. My next video is going to be days of the week and the best day for magical workings. So I'm going to go over on my next video each day of the week and what it's good for. And I believe the video after that is moon phases. So that way I will be providing that information for you as well. Moon phases and days of the week have have an effect on magical workings. So it's not, I will say this, it's not, super imperative that you work. Like, let's say if you want to do something, it's not like you don't have to wait for the full moon on a Thursday. If you want to do something right now, you can do something right now. But, to better your odds to work with moon phases and days of the week, it doesn't hurt. No correspondences. Learn how different colors will bring different results. Learn herbs and which ones are used for what purposes and what their associations are. Learn which elements can be used for different types of magic. There are different correspondences. Color magic is one thing. If you work with, let's say if you're casting a spell and you're using a candle, the color of that candle, green, can be used for money. There are different things that you can bring into your life. However, I will say, if you don't have a lot of money, you can just get white candles. White are like the use-all for all the different colors. You could just use a white candle, which is fantastic because, I'm not rich, that's for sure. And, I do have a few different colored candles, but a majority of my candles are white. And it makes it easier. The only thing I will say with candles is that once you use them for a spell, most spells, you can burn the candle all the way down. And then you bury, what's left in the earth or, however you decide to dispose of it from running water or whatever. But if you do not burn that candle down, do not use that candle again. Even if you only burn the candle for 4 hours and there's still a whole candle left. It doesn't matter how much you clean that candle or, how much you sage it or put in a salt or bury it in the earth. You don't want to use that candle for another spell. That candle has been, even if you only burned it for 4 hours, that candle has been spent. Ritual preparation. After deciding your intent and choose a time, and you choose your deity or deities, depending on whether you want to work with one or more. And if you actually even want, you don't have to work with deities. You don't have to bring them into your spells if you don't choose to. That's a personal choice. So you want to cleanse yourself in your magical space. Oh, let me first say, ritual preparation. To take a ritual bath, or, well, you don't have to take, no, not technically called a ritual bath, but to take a cleansing bath. If you don't want to take a bath or you don't have time for a bath, you can take a shower. When you take the shower, just when the water is falling on you, just imagine it's cleansing you and it's, washing away all of your, your tough day or whatever. Just, it's absolutely cleansing you. Not everybody has access to a bath. Some, especially now, the modern apartments, some of the apartments don't have tubs. They have only showers. There are some apartments that don't have showers and only have tubs. Mostly everybody has both, but not everybody has a lot of time either. So if you need to take a shower rather than a bath, go for it. That's perfectly acceptable. So after you cleanse yourself, you want to start by cleansing your magical space. You want to make sure you have all the tools that you're going to need for your spell. Once you're inside your protective circle, you really want to try and make sure you have everything in there so you don't have to cut a door. Even though cutting a door is acceptable, it's better if you have, because if you have to leave that circle, you have to cut a door and leave that circle, you're pretty much breaking your concentration, your focus, and all of that makes it difficult to, oh, well, I forgot this, let me go get it. And then you have to come back in, and now you have, so you kind of have to get back into that focused state of mind. It's easier if you make sure you have all the things that you need, all your tools, all of the items for your spell in your circle before you cast it. Right before you start with your spell, you want to cleanse your magical space. You can do this the way that I do it. I'll give you the way that I do it. And I'll give you other ways that you can do it as well. I use my besom. I use salt. I use incense, and I use water. Not in that order, though. I use my besom first. Then I use incense, which is a representation of fire and air. Then I use water, which is water. And then I use salt, which is a representation of earth. So I use all of the elements to cleanse my magical space. How I do this is, first I take my broom and I sweep, and it's not a cleansing sweep as in to clean. It's a cleansing sweep. Imagine that you are pushing all of the negativity, all of the negative energy, all of the bad energy, any stale energy out of the room. And what I say while I'm doing this, I say, sweep, sweep with my broom, all bad out of this room. Sweep, sweep, all good in, the bad to never return again. And this is what I say while I'm sweeping all of this. That way I get into my state of mind that I'm pushing all of this bad stuff out and I'm only allowing good in. Next, I take the incense. And I always walk clockwise. So I start with, my broom and I walk clockwise and I say that. And then next I take my incense and I walk clockwise and I say, I walk this circle once around to cleanse and consecrate this ground. I say this while I'm walking around. I come back to my start point, put the incense back on my altar. Next I take my water. And then as I'm walking clockwise, I say, I walk this circle once again. Between the worlds, all time can bend. I reach back to my start point, put the water back on the altar, and then I take my salt. And as I'm walking clockwise, I say, I walk this circle thrice this time, for the protection of the Lord and Lady are mine. And then I place it back on the altar when I'm done. So that is how I cleanse my space. You can sprinkle salt as you're walking with the salt. You can flick the water as you're walking around. You don't have to say anything. In your mind, as long as you are imagining that you are cleansing your space, you don't have to say a word, and with the incense, if you imagine that, you are cleansing your space with the broom, you don't have to say anything. You just focus and know what your intention is on cleansing the space, and that is enough. Next is to cast your circle. Casting your circle, you can use, there's a few different tools that you can use, but first let me say, Any of the tools that I mention here, you don't need. You don't need a wand. You don't need, an athame. You can do everything with your mind and your hands. That's all you need. Really, those are the two most important tools that you will ever need for magic, is yourself, your mind and your hands. So I have a wand that I use. It's my own personal choice. Like I said, you don't need a wand, especially if you don't have the money for it. This right here is a wand. This is the most powerful wand you will ever have, guaranteed. This right here has the ability to do so many things. Now, casting your circle, you could take your finger as you're walking around your circle. Okay, you want to walk around 3 times, going clockwise. And as you point, you imagine that this energy is coming out of you and you're creating this bubble of white light. And it's forming over you. And as you're walking, this bubble is forming completely. Now, as it has to form above you, it also has to close below you. So make sure that the circle is completely closed and encloses you in. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I need to make sure it's above me and completely closed, but you also have to make sure that it is completely closed underneath you as well. You leave that open and, you leave yourself open to anything, really, anything can come in. Now, I say, this is my own personal choice. Like I said, you don't have to say anything. It's all about your mind, your focus, and your intent. I say stuff when I walk around the circle. I say things like, I cast this circle to create a sacred space. No unwanted energies can enter this space. This circle is now cast, so mote it be. So I say something like this as I'm walking around, and I walk around 3 times. You don't necessarily have to walk around 3 times. You can walk around once. It's all about what you feel comfortable with. You can also sprinkle salt as you walk as well, like I had mentioned before. And that once you do that, your circle is now cast, and you can start to begin your magical workings and casting your spell. I like to call on the quarters. When you call on the quarters, what you're doing is you're calling in an element and you're calling in a direction. And each direction has an associated element, and those never change. North will always be earth, east will always be air, south will always be fire, and west will always be water. Those never change. So when you call the quarters, let me just grab my paper here. When you call the quarters, and here we go, got a little lost there. You always want to start at north. Now what I like to do as well, I like to have quarter candles. As I'm calling the quarters, I light the candle that represents that element in that direction. So I'll have a candle in the north, a candle in the east, a candle in the south, a candle in the west. And as I'm calling the quarters and making my way around, I light the candle. So this is what I do. I start at north and I say something to the effect of, I call to the north the element of earth. Grant us your endurance, your strength. And then I light the candle. And when you do this, when you're calling in the quarters, imagine that, you have this, the earth is, making its presence, the element of earth is making its presence. The direction of north is making its presence. And how you picture this in your mind is up to you, as long as, it's a correct representation of north and earth. You can imagine that, grass is growing on your floor and you can imagine anything that this element and this is presenting itself to serve witness to your spell and to your magical workings. Next, you want to make your way to east. You face east and you say, you don't have to say, but I say, I call to the east the element of air. Grant us your creativity, your intuition. And then I light the candle. Then I make my way to south. I face south and I say, I call to the south the element of fire. Grant us your passion, your energy. And then I light the candle. And then I finally make my way to the west, and I say, I call to the west, the element of water. Grant us your empathy, your emotion. And then I light the candle. And then I make my way back to north. And now I have all of my elementals, all of my directional candles lit. So now I'm ready to proceed. Now, if you're working with a deity, then you would want to, you can invoke them. You can ask them to join you. It can be very simple. It doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out thing. You can just say something simple like, let's say if you're working with Athena, for instance. I call you, Athena, to my circle to serve, not to serve, to bear witness to my magical workings this night. You could say something like that. You also want to have a statement of purpose. This is telling the divine why you have called them, or him or her, to your circle, what your plan is, what you're going to be doing. Next is the magical working, the actual spell. You want to raise your energy. Like I said, this could be chanting, drumming, singing, dancing, twirling. You can twirl in circles. You can meditate. You can, there are so many different ways. Play a musical instrument. There are so many different ways to raise energy. Channel that energy into your stones, your herbs, your candles, talismans, sachets, whatever it is that you are using that is going to be the base of your spell. If you're working candle magic, then you want to direct and channel all of that energy into that candle, because that's what essentially the spell is. It's the candle. You're using that as a tool to cast your spell. Once you have done that, and once you have finished that part of your spell, and you have directed that energy, and your intent and purpose is there, and you have completed your spell, you want to ground that energy. You want to, kind of sit, breathe slowly, bring yourself back. What I usually do is I, sit, or I stand, because I stand at my altar. You can sit as well. Your circle, make sure you cast your circle big enough to give yourself enough room to lay down if you want. If that's what you need to do. But you bring yourself back to that state of mind where you are relaxed and you have grounded that energy. What I like to do for myself next is I have cakes and wine. And that's also a good way to ground your energy and bring you back. And it kind of restores the energy that you just emptied yourself out by casting all of your energy into the spell and into your candles, herbs, stones, whatever you're using. You're going to feel depleted and you're going to feel a little bit exhausted. Cakes and wine, I don't drink wine when I do my spells. I drink juice. Depending on the season, you can drink different things. And the cakes as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be cakes. Like, for instance, with October, you can have pumpkin pie if you wanted to. You can have pumpkin bread. There are so many different things that you can use, and you can correlate the season with what you're using for cakes and wine, or you could just get whatever you feel like having. You eat a piece of bread, whether it be seasonal or not, and you drink a little wine or juice to help restore your energy. You can also offer some to the deities, which is a libation, and you're offering this to them as a thanks for being there and present in your ritual, or your spell. Once you are done with this, you can thank, if you have invited a deity in and have called upon one or two or however many you use, you would thank them for being there. And this can be very simple. Let's use Athena again. Athena, thank you for being in my circle. Thank you for witnessing my magical workings this evening. Hail and farewell. It could be something simple like that, Or stay if you go. Not stay if you go. Stay if you will, go if you must. Hail and farewell. You could do something like that. Keep it simple. And then you want to release the quarters, which is next. And because you started with north when you call them, you start with what you ended with, you go in reverse. You would start at the west when you release them. So you start at the west, you face west, and you say, "My thanks to the element of water. Your compassion was a gift. Farewell and blessed be." And then you would extinguish the candle if you use the candle. Then you would go to the south, and you would say, "My thanks to the element of fire. Your fierceness was a gift. Farewell and blessed be." And you would extinguish that candle. Next, you would go to the east. "My thanks to the element of air. Your wisdom was a gift. Farewell and blessed be." You would extinguish that candle. And then lastly, you would go to north. You would say, "My thanks to the element of earth. Your protection was a gift. Farewell and blessed be." And then, you would extinguish that candle. And then now that you have released the quarters and you have thanked your deities if you've used any, the next thing that you would do is close your circle. Now you can do this as simple as using your finger, your wand, your athame, whichever you're using. You would walk in reverse, so you wouldn't walk clockwise, you would walk counterclockwise, which is called Widdershins. And you would imagine, if you're using your finger, you would imagine that all this energy is getting sucked right back into your finger. So, and you kind of just imagine that you see this circle opening up. Okay, and for me, I walk around. I walk 3 times to cast it. I walk 3 times to open it. And what I say is, "The circle is open but never broken, so mote it be. Merry meet and merry part, and merry meet again." And then what I do from that point on is I imagine that if I'm retaining energy, I'll stand there for a moment. I'll imagine that the energy that I have, like I usually close my eyes. That's why I just did that. I closed my eyes thinking that I'm going to do it. I close my eyes. And then I imagine the energy moving through my body, out through my toes. I live on the 3rd floor, unfortunately. So the energy travels down the stairs and it goes into the earth. And then I kind of just tap my foot on the floor and I say, "The circle is down." And that completes your spell from beginning to end. The basics of this spell, between cleansing your space, casting your circle, calling in deities, calling the quarters. All of those basics are pretty much used for ritual work, for sabbats, for espits. You're pretty much going to use those steps for all of that. So it's good to get familiar with those things. There is still, sometimes I still have to read. I mean, as you can see, I got papers here. I mean, it's tough to, there is so much information to retain that it's just very difficult to remember. Unless you have a fantastic memory, then hey, give me some, because I have none. So, but that is this video for creating your own spell or writing your own spells. And, I hope this was helpful to everyone. And like I said, my next 2 videos, my next one is going to be days of the week. And, what days are good for, what things and what their associations are and everything like that. And then the video after that is going to be moon phases and spell work. So that way you'll actually have that information and you can tie that in with this. And hopefully you guys will get to writing your own spells. I mean, like I said, it's very easy to go on Google, to go, look in all. I mean, I have a library of books. On my hutch, I have one of the shelves. It's pretty big. The shelf is pretty long, and I just have books galore. Very fantastic reference tools. Great to learn, great to read. And it is good to have to do spells if you aren't fully ready to write your own. Absolutely. But it's always good to write your own at some point, because it becomes very personal to you. It's connected to you. You feel more connected because it comes from you and from within you. So it's always good to try and reach that point where you are completely comfortable. And Wicca, it's all about growing as a person, and you know what they say, do as you will. It will harm none, and do as you will. So as long as you're not hurting anybody, go for it, you know? So I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye, guys.